Hello, I am Katie Breen, and I am the Director of Technology and Communications for March for Moms. And I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker to you all today. Lara, we are really excited to have you. So Lara Molinar is a Tejana and third generation Mexican American and currently serves as the co-founder and co-director of the organization Suenos Sin Fronteras, or Dreams Without Borders, a Latinx woman of color-led collective in South Texas that aims to increase positive health and healing outcomes for immigrant and undocumented people and families in South Texas. Lara holds a Bachelor of Science degree in molecular biology from the University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas, and is currently pursuing her Master of Social Work degree at Columbia University School of Social Work with a concentration in Social Enterprise Administration. She also works part-time for the Urban Indigenous Collective as an MSW intern and program manager for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirited People project. Lara's organizing and advocacy around mutual aid, reproductive justice, health access, and healing are largely rooted in her lived experience as a survivor of intimate partner violence and lived experience with navigating oppressive structures within social service and health systems. Her work is also rooted in the comfort and joy of being connected to and inspired by her community. Lara was born, raised, and currently resides in Yanaguana, now presently known as San Antonio, Texas, with her two fur children, Luna the dog and Opal the cat. And today, Lara will discuss how her organization responded to the needs of undocumented pregnant and birthing people after the 2021 Texas winter storm. So, Lara, so excited for you to be here today, and you can take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie. Hello, welcome everyone. It's such an honor to be here. I want to first thank March for Moms for this honor and having me talk a little bit about, on behalf of Suenos Sin Fronteras, about some of the work that we do and our response during this past year during the winter storm of 2021, Winter Storm Uri. So I'm going to be sharing my screen here in just a second. Hopefully I don't have any technical difficulties here, but let's see here. Yeah, and if everyone could just help me out a little bit by just letting me know if you can see this screen, the presentation. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so as Katie had mentioned, my name is Lara Molinar, and I'm the co-founder and co-director of the organization here in South Texas, San Antonio, called Suenos Sin Fronteras. I'm really happy to be here today. My presentation is about building resilience through community-powered mutual aid for undocumented pregnant and birthing people in San Antonio, Texas. So just to get started here, I would love to, kind of see where everyone is from. If everyone wants to, if they feel comfortable sharing their name, their pronouns, their location, and maybe their respective organization, or something that they like to do, whatever you feel like sharing. I'd love to see who has joined us this afternoon. Awesome. So nice to meet you, Malika. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here with you all. And yeah, just to give you all a little bit of context, I'm located in San Antonio, Texas. It is it's in the 80s today. It was pretty cold last week, but it was also hot the week before. So that is a testament that climate change is happening, and yes, it's really affecting our climates moving forward here in Texas. Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Yuki. Oh, great. Hi, Yuki. Yeah. Lincia, it's nice to see you. Great. Yulia, nice to meet you. Great. All right. So today I'm gonna give you all a little bit of an overview of the work that Suenos Sin Fronteras does in South Texas. Also going to give you all some context about our community that we work within. And then I'm going to transition into giving some more background about the winter storm here in Texas and how it affected our communities and our collective response to the winter storm. I'm going to share a little bit of lessons learned, and then at the end, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. Probably 5 minutes, till 3, I'll open it up for Q&A. So I'd love to hear from you all and, just connect with you all further. So we're Suenos Sin Fronteras, which, as Katie had mentioned in her wonderful introduction, Suenos Sin Fronteras is Spanish for Dreams Without Borders. We were founded in 2018. Pictured here below is myself and my co-founder, Isabel Ramos Cepeda. And we founded Suenos Sin Fronteras in the summer of 2018. When, just in response to the need for reproductive rights, health, and justice for the undocumented communities in South Texas that had recently arrived from the U.S.-Mexico border and who have also been living in Texas for decades. So we saw this need and decided to respond. And yeah, we love this work, and now we are a small team of 7. So our purpose is, we are a Latinx women of color-led collective working to achieve reproductive justice and positive health and healing outcomes for undocumented birthing and pregnant people of color in South Texas through community mutual aid, education, and advocacy. We envision a world where all people, regardless of immigration status, gender identity, and expression, sexuality, income, or education level, have the ability to create and lead just and joyful, healthy lives. We want to dedicate this work and give reverence to, our work is inspired and informed by Loretta J. Ross and her vision for reproductive justice for all. We dedicate this work to all queer, trans, immigrant, disabled, Black, Indigenous people of color who have created and inspired intersecting movements towards liberation and justice in our Southern communities. This work would be not possible and irrelevant without the work of these communities. So a little bit of context about our community here in San Antonio, Texas. That is a beautiful view of our skyline. It's a bit spread out, but that is our skyline here. So a little bit about our demographics. There are currently, as of 2019, 1.5 million people live in San Antonio, making it the 7th largest city in the United States. It really just baffles me that we are the 7th largest city in the US, because I don't know if any of you all have been to San Antonio. It's like a small, big city, especially if you were born and raised there. The demographics of San Antonio, it's about 64.2% Hispanic, Latinx, 24.7% white, Caucasian, 7% Black, 2.8% Asian, and about 0.7% Native and Indigenous. And 278,000 immigrants currently reside in San Antonio, Texas, which makes, I think, roughly about 1% of the total population. 130,800 children live in San Antonio with at least one immigrant parent. And the distance between San Antonio and the nearest Customs and Border Protection checkpoint along the US-Mexico border is about 144 miles, so about an hour and a half, and that would be in Eagle Pass, Texas. To give you a little bit of context about the health status here in San Antonio, there was a lot to cover, but I wanted to kind of highlight these main points. The issue of being uninsured is a huge growing issue here in South Texas. According to the Status of Women brief that was released by the city of San Antonio, 1 in 5 women do not have health insurance. And that was between 2013 and 2017. And Hispanic, Latinx folks, particularly foreign-born folks, are most affected. So 42% have no insurance. And of the 5 million people uninsured in Texas in 2014, about 1.6 million individuals were immigrants. Also, there are extreme racial disparities among birthing people that are not receiving prenatal care in San Antonio. So this shows a graph of the percentage of non-Hispanic, Latinx, white folks that are currently receiving prenatal care, and then the percentage of folks that are receiving prenatal care. So as you can see, 56.3% compared to 43.8%. There's an extreme disparity in people receiving prenatal care here in San Antonio. And this data was from the city of San Antonio. And Bexar County has the highest infant mortality rate and mortality rate of birthing people dying due to childbirth complications compared to Dallas, Travis, and Harris counties, which Dallas is Dallas, Texas, Travis is Austin, and Harris County is Houston. So a little bit of context about the winter storm. In February 2021, Texas faced record low temperatures, and the snow and ice made roads literally impassable. It was probably the most horrific experience that I had ever encountered. So, to give a little bit of background, Texas had faced these really low temperatures, as you saw in the last slide. That was a screenshot from my phone that said that it was 12 degrees in San Antonio, actually inside my house, and I didn't have any heat. And the houses in San Antonio, the buildings in San Antonio, they're not equipped for that level of cold. And so the state's electric grid operator, I'm just going to give a little bit of background about the state's inability to respond when this happened. The state's electric grid operator, ERCOT, lost control of this power supply, which left millions of Texans without access to electricity. And many Texans also lost access to running water. I was personally without running water for about 2 weeks after the winter storm. And I also wanted to show you all this, this map that was created by CPS Energy, which is our energy company here in San Antonio. And it showed us something that all of us were suspecting during the winter storm. And it was that the outages were vastly unequal between the different neighborhoods. So as you can see here, the outer edges, like the north, you see here and there, kind of when you go outside of San Antonio, some of the it's red here because of the level of outages, but kind of inner San Antonio, there's a lot more green and yellow, compared to the central part of San Antonio, which experienced the highest level of power outages and water shortages. So just kind of sharing a few articles here that came out. So Texans lost their lives due to lack of access to heat and water. The Texas government failed us. Low income communities of color especially were victims of an array of avoidable decisions and mistakes that really left all of us helpless during the winter storm. I think that when it happened, everyone kind of hoped that people would do the right thing, that our government would do the right thing, but unfortunately they didn't. And I will add that they still, in all of those legislative sessions that Abbott has called into session, they have done nothing to address what happened to prevent this from happening in the future, which I believe that with climate change happening and us having, 85-degree weather here in November, the likelihood of this happening is very high. So speaking a little bit about our response. So what was the need during that time? Yeah, it was quite an experience, and the need that we had encountered was that undocumented birthing and pregnant people in San Antonio faced rolling power outages. They were the most affected by the effects of the winter storm. They had frozen and busted pipes, lack of transportation, shortage of food and life-saving medications due to closures of grocery stores and pharmacies. And I'm going to give you all 3 examples here of community members that we supported during this time. I have changed their names to protect their identities. But to give a little bit of context of what was going on and the things that they were experiencing, one of our community members, Maria, she travels to and from San Antonio with her young son, who currently has leukemia, and she travels from San Antonio to Mexico to bring her son to his medical appointments and chemotherapy treatments. And she was in town during that week of the winter storm and was stranded without food and access to her son's medication. Fortunately, we were able to make a partnership, or initiate a partnership with a really compassionate property manager / Airbnb host who opened up his home and even traveled to pick up her laundry and do her laundry and drop off food or whatever items that they needed. So that is the Sananto way. That's what a lot of folks in San Antonio do. And so I was really proud that we had that support from our community for her family. Carmen, on the other hand, was located in Baytown. Carmen is an undocumented pregnant woman with 3 children in Baytown, Texas. She's now since had that baby, and so she has 4 children now. And but at the time, she was about 6 months pregnant, and they went 48 hours without any access to running water and transportation. And she and her family at the time were also infected with COVID-19. Felicia is an undocumented woman here in San Antonio with 3 children in San Antonio who were without access to running water, food, and warm shelter due to the pipes bursting in her apartment. And I will also share as well that maybe about a week before the winter storm happened, Felicia lost her son, who was 18 years old, lost him to a rare form of leukemia. So she was also dealing with a great amount of stress and grief on top of all of the things that were happening to her home. So I wanted to share some of these images of Felicia's apartment after the pipes burst, which caused severe damage and unsafe living conditions for her family. We, on behalf of Felicia, our team advocated to the apartment complex to fix this issue once things were back up and running in the city. And because Felicia lives in a low income area and a lot of the residents at her apartment complex are low income, their needs weren't really prioritized. And so Felicia, after a lot of frustration, had to relocate and find a new place to live. So going more into our response and also to give some background about our empowerment fund, we launched our empowerment fund in 2020, in March 2020, in response to the COVID pandemic. And since its first start in 2020, the Empowerment Fund has redistributed over $150,000 of mutual aid assistance to undocumented birthing and pregnant people and their families across Texas. The Suenos Sin Fronteras Empowerment Fund provides direct material and financial support to undocumented women and families while simultaneously working to dismantle current oppressive systems. And we work towards rebuilding authentic networks of comfort and support and safety and well-being and love. Because like you all saw in those previous pictures, especially those news articles about Texas's failure to respond, at the end of the day, our community is all we have. And we know how to best support each other, and so that's kind of where this vision of providing mutual aid came from. Also, mutual aid is an act of resistance and an ancestral practice that has been done by communities of color since the beginning of time. So this is kind of our baby that we've built, and we're really proud that we're able to support folks with the assistance that they need in their communities. So what were we able to do with our empowerment fund and also just our efforts as a collective? So some of the highlights were that we were able, through the Empowerment Fund, we were able to provide life-saving resources and support to undocumented birthing and pregnant people through the Empowerment Fund. And some of those things that we provided were grocery assistance and drop-offs, diapers and baby formula, telehealth doula support, rental support, cash assistance, prescription medications, cell phone bill assistance, gasoline, water, transportation support, utility assistance. And the big reason why we do all of this, right? Because we know that reproductive justice is not just providing reproductive health care, right? It's ensuring the conditions necessary to ensure reproductive justice. And so in addition to our empowerment fund work, we also convened with local community-based organizations such as Para Mi Gente, Mutual Aid Fund here in San Antonio, Trinity University, Mutual Aid, the Black Futures Collective, Southwest Workers Union, to coordinate efforts and also make calls out for support where it was needed to their community members and ours as well. We launched a community helpline to provide assistance to undocumented folks with navigating emergency resources in their area. And we provided advocacy to families navigating issues with their apartment complex, their utility companies, and legal cases. So a lot of folks were dealing with a lot of compounding issues. And so we, provided advocacy and making sure that we held these systems and these businesses accountable for doing the right thing for our community members. We also fostered partnerships with bilingual mental health providers, such as the Our Lady of the Lake University's community counseling service, as well as a virtual mental health service called Sanarai that provides Spanish mental health support to some of our community members. We also were able to provide prenatal and postpartum counseling and education through partnerships with Spanish-speaking birth workers. And I also want to share that this response, all of this work was made possible and supported by community donations, an emergency response grant from the organization Every Mother Counts, and our involvement with the National Birth Equity Collaborative, their Maternal Telehealth Access Project, which was awarded back in October. But having that support from them really helped us to make those partnerships with birth workers to provide teledoula support to our community. So I just wanted to share a few pictures of some examples of what we did. In the first picture, this is a screenshot of an exchange with a volunteer that we were connected to through the Para Mi Gente mutual aid folks. And she was able to deliver groceries, hygiene items, electrolytes, and gasoline to Carmen, the woman that we had mentioned previously, and her family. And as I had mentioned previously, Carmen and her family were dealing with COVID at the time as well. In this next picture, this is a picture of vitamins that were delivered by our former family advocate here at Suenos. And she delivered groceries, water, shoes, vitamins, and cash assistance to an undocumented woman in our community who lives alone, who was living alone in the Texas Hill Country with very little access to any type of food support, food and water support. And then the last picture is a picture of my car filled with food and also cat food too. So despite the challenges faced, Felicia and her family received a large donation of food from the hospital where her son was receiving treatment. And she redistributed over 50 pounds of food to other undocumented community members with our support with transportation, of course. But this is the power that our community members have. This is, in spite of the challenges, we take matters upon our own hands and we, do what's best for our communities and our families. Yeah, this is just an example of some of the educational materials that were created by our incredible community development intern, Ana Hernandez, who is based in El Paso. But she actually had access to internet when we didn't. So it was really great to have her support with making, translating some of the information from English to Spanish to ensure that undocumented folks in our community knew where to access these resources. Yeah, so some of the challenges that we had experienced. So a lack of emergency resources in education in Spanish. And it was really difficult to write things up and also, or like find things that were in Spanish. And so, a lot of that took time and labor to translate those materials. And then our team members were also affected by the rolling power outages in their communities. We had lack of running water. We didn't have cell phone service and a lack of food. So we were all trying to help each other out. And it was truly a team and community effort. We had limited team member capacity at the time. We had just onboarded, 2 new family advocates, and, we were working within a small capacity. And, we needed assistance with dispatch, mutual aid drop-offs, and training of volunteers. The fact that there isn't any access to healthcare and social safety nets for undocumented families in Texas just exacerbated the crisis. Storms, and as I had said previously, the storms exacerbated multiple concurrent crisis and financial hardships. And, I also want to point out that, people being forced to stay indoors, heighten their risk of infection, by COVID-19, and, sharing a space with an abuser too, if some of them were in, violent situations and relationships. It really, did worsen the situation for many folks that were experiencing intimate partner and gender-based violence. And also a decrease in community donations due to hardship caused by COVID-19 and the winter storm. In 2020, when we had first launched our empowerment fund, we were so grateful to receive generous support from the community. However, with all of the different hardships that had come along the year, and also with the winter storm, there was a significant decline in those donations to continue doing this work. So I'll try to keep this really quick. I know I wanted to also open it up for Q&A as well, but just highlighting some of the things that we learned, lessons learned. So we were able to strengthen and build cross collaborations across San Antonio through virtually. So we learned how to be creative and use the tools that we had. So we were able to strengthen cross collaborations through virtual conference calls, through the creation of Slack workspaces, WhatsApp chats, you name it. We were definitely creative. We also increased capacity to respond and adapt to evolving and complex financial and logistical circumstances. And this was, part by our collective knowledge and the skills that we share and coming together and creating an emergency plan, so that in the future, if this happens, we know how to respond and we know how to support ourselves and sustain these efforts. We responded to the need for ongoing mental health support by establishing former partnerships with virtual and in-person mental health providers. And we also implemented a new helpline system through the Sideline platform, and also implemented a new case management platform to assist us in keeping track of the evolving needs and requests of our community members. All right, so thank you all so much for bearing with me. I definitely want to open it up now for Q&A. And I'm just gonna leave my screen on my contact information as well. This is how you can support our ongoing work here in South Texas. That QR code links straight to our donation page. We have we're very active on social media, so mainly Instagram and Facebook, because that's where a lot of our community members interact with us on. So I encourage you to please follow us on social media. And if you're interested in keeping up with our work, please send us an email, and we will make sure that you are subscribed to our newsletter. And of course, if you would like to connect with me further, I've listed my direct email address and my phone number at the bottom. All right, and now I'll open it up to some questions. Okay, I see. Okay, awesome. That's a great question, Yulia. So Yulia's question is, what recommendations do you have for orgs that are worried about funding? And, I have to be honest, this is something that we are honestly always thinking about and working through. I'm sure with a lot of folks that do grassroots work, this may be a common concern. But, I think that one important thing that we remember and that we hold very dear to us is the power of our community. And, in the past, in the face of crises like COVID and the winter storm, we were really, really worried about how we were going to able to support our community members and support our work. But, through, community outreach, using social media, using we connected with some businesses, local businesses in San Antonio, to do a raffle for our empowerment fund. So yeah, just getting creative with our fundraising ideas as well, and making sure that, we aren't so heavily reliant on foundation funding, because, we have, our work is rooted in the community. And so, I know that not all the time you can rely on foundation funding. And so, just connecting with folks, local businesses, getting creative with your social media efforts, and designing campaigns that really involve community members into the work, so that it doesn't feel so extractive, and it really makes it feel like they are part of the community that you're working within. Thank you so much, Ginger, for your comment. I appreciate it. Any other questions? I think we might have time for maybe one more.
I have a question. Do you have any recommendations for designing services so that undocumented folks would feel comfortable accessing them?
That's a great question. Yes. So that is something that we have been actively doing. And, right now we're in the redevelopment of our collective to ensure that redeveloping our programs, our direct support, our advocacy, our education initiatives, to make sure that they are aligned with the needs of our community, the undocumented community. And I'll give you one example in the context of reproductive health and rights, right? With everything happening in Texas with SB 8, one of our biggest focuses is to ensure that we are getting out this information about abortion access and about abortions and about, the different choices that people have, making sure that information is constructed in a way that people that undocumented folks are going to respond to. And making sure that these resources, because a lot of the resources that are being shared are in Spanish, and so that's a big gap, because folks don't know who to reach out for assistance and support. And so making sure that there's always that language justice component, and involving them in the design of these programs and these projects. So hearing from them during like our engagements with them, hearing from them, what do you want to hear? What do you want to learn more about? What are you most concerned about when it comes to your reproductive health? But also understanding the cultural context of where they're coming from, right? So, unfortunately, it's not as easy to say, this is where you can get abortion. This is where, these are the abortion resources that are available, the little resources that we have, right? These are the ones that are available. It's not as easy as that. We have to start from square one to really make sure that we are presenting this information in a culturally relevant way, because in our culture it is just so stigmatized, and so making sure that we know how to read the room, right, and we are always responsive to those needs and the needs of the community.
Awesome. Thank you for that thoughtful response, and then also for this whole presentation. We really appreciate it. For the audience, we'll make sure that you have Lara's contact information, and we'll try to share as much of the information that Lara presented as possible. But thank you so much for your time, Lara, and your amazing work.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you, everyone, for listening. It was an honor being here. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone.